In the first episode of this series, 5 practices that successful leaders prioritize, I talked about Michael Plant. Michael Plant in 1992 was getting ready to make a cross-Atlantic sail trip by himself in a brand new boat called the Coyote. Nobody was worried, nor was he, for this trip. He had already circumnavigated the globe multiple times by himself. He was very confident. State-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art boat. He was ready. And as I mentioned in the story, I won't go into all the details here, but partway across, the people lost all communication with him, had no idea where he was or what he was doing. Some said, well, he must have encountered a huge hurricane, so he's obviously fixated and focused on getting through that hurricane. We'll hear from him ultimately. But ultimately never came. And to make a long story short, in this episode, his boat was discovered upside down and no sign of Michael Plant, the U.S. sailor, anywhere. He had been lost at sea, which started then all the questioning from the people that knew him, other sailors around the world. How could he have been lost at sea, this professional, highly skilled sailor who had done all the way around the world multiple times by himself and never run into any problems? Why this? So as they began to look at the boat and notice things, there were several things that began to become apparent about Michael Plant. First of all, his friends thought, you know what? It's possible that he was overconfident. He had done this so many times. He knew how to do it. He wasn't worried. He had good equipment. Perhaps he was overconfident. And then they discovered something interesting. The state-of-the-art EPIRB, emergency position indicating radio beacon, that is designed to go off and send signals to the Coast Guard should there be an emergency. It'll go off automatically, had never been registered by Michael Plant with the U.S. Coast Guard. So they had no record of it. So therefore, that piece of vital equipment in an emergency never activated. And what's more, the extra 8,000-pound ballast that had been attached to his keel was gone. For whatever reason, he had lost that important weight below the waterline, so that when a hurricane undoubtedly came and the winds blew, the sailboat went over and a professional seaman was lost at sea. Tragic, tragic loss. Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Nelson, and in this episode, number 4 of this series, I want to talk about what we call blind spots for leaders. Blind spots. Blind spots are certain tendencies that we engage in that are unproductive, and not only that, but at times even destructive to ourselves or the people around us as leaders. Blind spots. Every leader has blind spots. They are behaviors or beliefs that have a negative impact on ourselves and the people that we work with. Blind spots. They're called blind spots because most leaders simply are not aware of them. It's like that place in the rearview mirror, between the rearview mirror and that side mirror and the driver's side, where in between there's that one space that we call the blind spot. We can't see anything in that particular space. So we then have to turn physically and look to see what's in that space, that blind spot. That's a blind spot. The higher up a leader goes in an organization, the more likely that there are blind spots that leader has not A, identified, or B, dealt with on a positive level. Blind spots. One of the great executive coaches, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, wrote a book entitled "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." The whole premise of the book is that the higher up a leader goes, the more responsibility a leader goes, there is that automatic assumption by the leader that whatever got her or him to this position is enough to get them to the next level, next position. And he says, every time that is an impossibility. It is those blind spots that short circuit that person's success. Blind spots. Behaviors, beliefs that end up if we don't identify them, if we're not conscious and aware about them, short-circuiting our professional success. It could be behaviors like winning too much. There are some leaders who just have to always be the one who wins. And sometimes that's a blind spot because oftentimes they have what it takes to win. So they're not aware of that. It could be making destructive comments. There are some leaders who have very sharp tongues, and when a team member says something, that leader then makes a destructive comment and diminishes that person, shames that person, guilts that person. And it's just sort of an automatic response on the leader's part. And sometimes the leader's not aware that she or he is being destructive to the people around them. And that short circuits professional success. Failing to give proper recognition, another blind spot that many leaders have. They just don't recognize the importance of affirmation and positive recognition. Claiming credit that they don't deserve. A team member has a great win on a project, and that leader comes in and takes the credit for it and doesn't give that credit to that person. Those are behaviors that are blind spots. I worked with a CEO one time of a growing company, and here was his blind spot. He had no clue that this was the way he was coming across. His superpower was crisis management. He was a genius at saving an organization or a situation from the crisis that has existed. He was so good at it, in fact, that what his blind spot is that he often created crisis in order to be the crisis savior. He would do this over and over again. And the moment he was able to manage one crisis, and the team then, his staff, was getting used to coming back to this place of equilibrium, he got jumpy, and he had to have another crisis so he could be the crisis savior. I noticed this behavior in him, and one day in our session, I held up the mirror to him. I said, do you realize that you're actually creating crises so that you can be the crisis savior? You can come in and fix the whole situation and look good every time. But whether you realize it or not, that is having a destructive impact on your staff. Well, he had no idea that this was what he was doing, so he did some serious reflection and ultimately changed that behavior, because that behavior was destroying his staff, and ultimately it would keep him from going to the next level of success and effectiveness. That's behavior. How about a belief that could be a blind spot? I can tell you one from my own personal experience. I grew up with this belief because of a statement my mom had made when I was a kid. Greg, I wish you could be more organized like your brother. This idea of, from that moment on, I had this idea that organization and administration simply was not my thing. I started my career and I always shied away from those responsibilities that involved administration and organization. I was in one church, I was pastoring in those days, and I was talking to my head elder, and we were talking about the strategic plan that we had developed with our strategic planning committee for this congregation to be more mission focused. And that strategic plan involved organizing different teams in that congregation. So in this conversation, my head elder at one point made a statement about what we needed to do in terms of the administration of all this, and I made the statement to him. I said, I'm sorry, administration is not my thing. I'm not organized, I don't have that, that's not my sweet spot, it's not my thing. And he stopped me mid-sentence and he said, Greg, I don't ever want to hear you say that again. I said, why not? He said, because what you are saying about yourself is completely untrue. And then he took the next 5 minutes to tell me all the things he had observed of my leadership while I was in that congregation. 5 minutes, he goes nonstop. And they were all evidences, real life evidences that not only did I have that gift, but I was actually good at it. And when he came to the end of giving all this evidence, he said, this is the reason, Greg, I never want you to say that about yourself again. Well, I have to tell you, that was a game changer for me. I was holding on to a belief that was not true about myself, and because I was hanging on to that belief, that was going to limit me in terms of my own professional success. So I shifted that view, and I began to see evidences for myself that actually I had this great passion and this skill about bringing people together and organizing them and administrating something that has a great mission and great purpose to it. Beliefs can be blind spots, and if I had never identified that through the help of this other leader, that would have continued to inhibit me. I went on to pastor big churches from that point on that involved administration and organization, and it was a great place of passion for me, and I was effective at it. See, folks, if we don't identify our blind spots, those blind spots become not only inhibitors of our success, but destructive impacts on the people around us. Number one, we have to become conscious of them, and sometimes that takes extra help from other people that we trust. And in the final video of this series, the next episode, I'm going to talk specifically about surrounding ourselves with people of support that we trust and whose wisdom we value. Sometimes it takes other people to help us, like this head elder for me, to call it out on me, to hold up the mirror and say, that's not true. Your belief is not serving you, and it's not based on reality, Greg. We have to become conscious of it and identify that, and then we have to work to shift that behavior. Blind spots. I want for you as a leader to have the highest level of effectiveness and success as you can imagine yourself achieving. And sometimes that imagination is a blind spot. We don't see big enough, and we need the encouragement of the people who know us to help us get to that next level. But my wish for you is that you would have the awareness, whatever way it takes, whether it's other people or your own self-reflection, awareness what how you might be inhibiting yourself and inhibiting the people around you, that you would develop that awareness and then the capacity, the boldness and the courage to look at it and to address it, to fix it, to transform it so that you achieve your greatest potential. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.